Everybody knows Floyd Mayweather walked away from boxing with a spotless 50-0 record, with hundreds of millions in the bank. But while everyone was busy watching the fights and arguing about whether he actually beat Pacquiao, Floyd quietly went and made a deal for around $400 million to control roughly 1,000 apartments across more than 60 buildings in Manhattan. Sounds crazy, right? 1,000 homes in one of the most expensive cities on the planet. The guy who got famous for not getting hit became a landlord on a scale most real estate firms never reach. So how did Mayweather pull this off? And why exactly did he want 1,000 apartments? Let's get into it. Chapter 1. The $400 million deal nobody saw coming. Let's start with the deal itself because the scale of it is genuinely hard to wrap your head around. In late 2024, Floyd Mayweather struck one of the biggest residential real estate deals in all of New York City for that entire year. The number? Around $402 million. Just sit with that figure for a second, because it's the kind of money most people can't even visualize. And what it buys is the wild part. A portfolio of roughly 1,000 affordable housing apartments spread across more than 60 different buildings, concentrated mostly up in Upper Manhattan, neighborhoods like Harlem, Washington Heights, and Inwood. He bought the whole thing from a major New York real estate firm called Black Spruce Management. To give you a sense of how massive that is, out of every single real estate sale in the entire city that year, only one was bigger. And that one was a distressed, building on fire sell it now kind of situation. Floyd's was the real deal, done by choice from the top of the market. Now, this wasn't some reckless, drunk on a yacht, swipe the black card kind of move. This was strategic, and Floyd structured it like a guy who reads balance sheets for fun. Instead of paying for all 60-plus buildings in one giant lump sum, the deal was built to close in waves, rolling transactions, one chunk at a time, the first piece closing in October 2024, and the rest rolling through after that. That's how the big institutional players do it. It lets you deploy your capital smartly, keep your money working, and not hand it all over in a single afternoon. And just think about the picture here for a second. A man who built his entire fortune throwing punches, sitting in a room full of lawyers and brokers, structuring a 9-figure real estate acquisition like he'd been doing it since birth. The hands that knocked out Canelo were now signing closing documents. And here's the cherry on top. A lot of these buildings come with a special 40-year New York tax break designed for affordable housing. 40 years. So Floyd isn't just buying 1,000 apartments. He's buying 1,000 apartments with built-in tax advantages and steady, reliable rent checks flowing in every single month, while a big chunk of the tax bill just disappears. That's not flashy. There's no Instagram reel of a tax exemption. But that boring, bulletproof, cash-flowing paperwork is exactly the kind of thing that quietly makes families rich for generations. But to understand why this particular deal hit Floyd so deep, why he actually called it emotional, you have to understand where this man came from. And it's a long way from a penthouse. Chapter 2. From 7 people in one bedroom to 1,000 apartments. Here's the detail that turns this from a dry business story into something that'll actually give you chills. When Floyd Mayweather announced this deal, he didn't lead with the money or the flex. He said it held deep emotional significance for him and his family. And once you hear his backstory, that statement lands completely differently. Floyd Mayweather did not grow up rich. Not even in the same zip code as Rich. He's talked openly about a childhood where, at one point, 7 people were packed into a single, one-bedroom apartment. 7 people. 1 bedroom. Do the math on that, and it's almost hard to picture. That's not a tight living situation, that's a clown car. He came up in genuine, grinding poverty in the tri-state area, the exact kind of working-class struggle that millions of families in cities like New York are still living right now, today. So when he says this deal means something to him, you don't roll your eyes. It actually tracks. The kid who grew up with nothing, 7 deep in one room, grew up to own 1,000 homes in the very region where he started with empty pockets. There's a real poetry to that, and let's be honest, it's also genius branding. Floyd has said for years that people see what he's got now, the jets, the diamond watches, the hypercars, and have absolutely no clue where he came from. This New York deal is him closing that loop in the most public way possible. He's not buying himself another marble palace. He's buying the kind of regular, working family apartments that people exactly like young Floyd used to rent. The man who escaped the one-bedroom is now the guy who owns the whole building. Now, you can read that as beautiful full-circle inspiration. Or you can raise an eyebrow at a billionaire becoming a landlord to low-income tenants. And honestly, both takes are fair. But either way, it's a heck of a story. And here's the thing. This 1,000-apartment deal isn't even Floyd's first rodeo in New York. It's just the part that made headlines. The rest of it has been quietly climbing straight up the skyline for years. Speaking of quietly owning the thing instead of renting it, that's the same instinct that pulled someone on our team to the Pulse R8 smart ring. It tracks your heart rate, your sleep, and your workouts straight from your finger. A week on a single charge, 100 days with the case, and it's fully waterproof. The part that got us was the price. Under $40, a fraction of what the big-name rings cost, because it comes direct instead of through the retailers that mark everything up. If you're watching on your TV, pause and scan the QR code on screen with your phone camera, or tap the first link in the description. Because that headline deal wasn't even his first move. He'd already bought up skyscrapers nobody noticed. Chapter 3. The 9 skyscrapers most people don't know about. Here's something that'll genuinely surprise you. The 1,000-apartment deal wasn't Floyd's opening move in New York, not even close. He'd already been quietly buying his way into the Manhattan skyline itself, and almost nobody noticed. For years now, Floyd has been an investor alongside one of the absolute biggest office landlords in all of New York City, a firm called S.L. Green. And we are not talking about a single building here. Floyd has said he's put capital into 9 different commercial skyscrapers in New York. 9 actual skyscrapers. So while the public was busy picturing him courtside, flashing cash on Instagram, or popping bottles in a club, the man was quietly buying slices of the office towers that literally make up the Manhattan skyline. And that's a whole different sport from owning a fancy house. Buying a mansion makes you a rich guy. Buying pieces of the skyline makes you the kind of player that pension funds and global institutions sit across the table from. Floyd skipped right past celebrity with money and into serious real estate investor. And he didn't exactly pump the brakes after that. Around the same time as the apartment deal, Floyd reportedly went on an absolute shopping spree, putting money into a multi-billion-dollar office portfolio with trophy buildings spread across New York, Chicago, and New Jersey. We're talking one of the largest deals of his entire life, casually stacked on top of everything else, all inside the span of a few months. The man was deal hopping like the rest of us add things to a cart at midnight. But look at the actual strategy underneath the spree, because it's smart. The apartments hand him steady residential rent from regular tenants. The skyscrapers give him a stake in the high-end commercial market. He's not betting everything on one type of building. He's spreading across the entire board, residential and commercial, top and bottom, so that no matter which way the market swings, Floyd owns a piece of the winning side. That's chess, not checkers. But none of this New York empire, not one apartment, not one tower, would have been possible without a single ruthless decision Floyd made way back in 2006. A decision that cost him nearly $1 million and looked, at the time, completely insane. Chapter 4. The $750,000 gamble that rewrote the rules. To understand how a boxer ended up with the kind of money to casually buy 1,000 Manhattan apartments, you have to rewind to the single smartest move of his entire career. And the beautiful irony is, it had nothing to do with throwing a punch. For the first 10 years of his career, Floyd was promoted by one of the most powerful promotional companies in all of boxing. And in that traditional setup, the promoter holds every single card in the deck. They decide when you fight, which TV network carries it, where the event happens. And then they scoop up the giant majority of the money while handing the fighter a fixed, agreed-upon purse. Read that again. The athlete takes all the punches, and the promoter takes most of the cash. That's just how boxing worked for basically everybody, forever. It was the deal nobody questioned. Floyd questioned it. Floyd looked at that whole arrangement and decided very calmly that he wanted out. So, in 2006, he did something that made the entire boxing world think he'd taken one too many shots to the head. He turned down what would have been the biggest guaranteed payday of his career to that point, an $8 million offer to take a fight. And instead, he paid his own promoter a buyout fee of exactly $750,000 to walk away. Let that fully land. He didn't get paid to leave. He paid $750,000 out of his own pocket for the privilege of being free. Picture telling your boss you're quitting and then writing them a massive check on your way out the door. People genuinely thought he'd lost it. But here's what Floyd saw that nobody else in the building did. For less than the cost of a single fight, he'd just bought himself the entire business. He went from being a very well-paid employee to being the owner of the whole operation overnight. Then he linked up with a brilliant, almost invisible, behind-the-scenes strategist, a Harvard-educated advisor who barely ever showed his face in public, and the two of them built Floyd his own promotional company. And that one move flipped the entire equation. Now Floyd wasn't getting a slice of the pie. Floyd was the pie. The pay-per-view money, the foreign TV rights, the ticket sales, the sponsorships, every last revenue stream funneling straight into his own pocket instead of somebody else's. That single $750,000 bet is the exact reason the money went from rich athlete to absolutely astronomical. And astronomical is not me being dramatic, as you're about to see. Chapter 5. The 3 fights that printed $750 million. Once Floyd owned his own promotional company, his earnings stopped looking anything like an athlete's salary and started looking like the annual revenue of a mid-sized corporation. And the numbers are honestly a little ridiculous. In just 3 of his biggest fights, the Canelo Alvarez fight in 2013, the gigantic Manny Pacquiao mega event in 2015, and the circus that was the Conor McGregor fight in 2017, Floyd Mayweather took home more than $750 million from 3 nights of work. 3. Now hold that number up next to the $750,000 it cost him to go independent in the first place. He spent $750,000 to free himself, and then made a literal 1,000 times that amount on just 3 fights. That's not a good investment. That's one of the most lopsided jaw-on-the-floor financial bets in the entire history of professional sports. And the whole thing only worked because, years earlier, he chose to own the platform instead of renting it from somebody else. And there was one more layer of genius stacked on top. Because of course there was. When Floyd signed a massive deal with a major TV network, he didn't just grab the guaranteed money, reportedly in the neighborhood of $200 to $250 million across the contract, which is already absurd. He also held on to creative control, including over the documentary series that hyped up his own fights. Think about how slick that is. He was getting paid to make a TV show promoting himself, which built his brand, which sold more pay-per-views, which made him even more money. A perfect little money-printing loop feeding itself in a circle. This right here is the engine. This is where the mountain of cash came from that he's now quietly shoveling into New York real estate. He didn't stumble into a fortune. He built a machine, brick by brick, and pointed it at his own name. And once that machine was printing money faster than even Floyd could spend it, which is saying something, he had to figure out where to put it all, which is where the real empire building kicked into gear. Chapter 6. Why he traded mansions for apartment buildings. Here's a shift in Floyd's thinking that tells you he's playing a completely different game than 99% of rich athletes. For years, Floyd was the undisputed king of the trophy mansion, the flashy, multi-million-dollar marble-everything showpiece home. The guy practically invented the genre. But lately, he's been pivoting hard towards something way less glamorous and infinitely smarter. Look at the pattern, because it's loud. Floyd's been actively selling off his flashy luxury homes. He flipped a Beverly Hills mansion he bought for around $25 million, and later listed it for $48, a potential profit of over $20 million for basically holding onto a house for a few years. He sold a stunning Miami waterfront mansion on a private island for $22 million. He even put his famous Las Vegas mansion on the market. He's quietly cashing out of the trophies one by one. And where's all that money marching off to? Straight into things like 1,000 Manhattan apartments and 9 skyscrapers. Assets that don't just sit there looking gorgeous in a listing photo, but actually generate cold hard cash every single month. And this is the whole genius of it, the part most people never figure out. A trophy mansion is, financially speaking, a beautiful money pit. It bleeds you on taxes, staff, insurance, and upkeep. and it only ever pays off if you eventually manage to sell it for more than you put in. It's a bet. But an apartment building stuffed with paying tenants? That's a machine. It pays you rent month after month after month, whether Floyd is sleeping, vacationing, training his grandson, or doing absolutely nothing at all. He's deliberately swapping "look how rich I am" assets for "make me richer while I nap" assets. And honestly, the second kind is a much better flex once you understand money. And the apartments aren't even his only passive income machine. The man collects revenue streams like he collects watches. Floyd also built a boxing and fitness gym franchise that's scaled to over 100 locations, open or in development, all around the world: the US, Europe, the Middle East, Asia. And here's the slick part. He doesn't actually run those gyms. Other people pay him for the right to slap his name and his training system on their business, and every membership, every class, every branded t-shirt sends a little royalty check marching right back to Floyd. He basically turned his own workout routine into a global business that prints money while he does nothing. On top of that, he's got a high-end Las Vegas nightclub pulling in millions a year. Gyms, rent checks, royalties, bottle service. The man has stacked passive income stream on passive income stream, so the money just keeps rolling in whether he lifts a finger or not. That's the entire difference between someone who's merely famous and rich and someone who's building generational, institutional wealth. The kind that outlives the fame and gets handed down to his kids and grandkids. Floyd figured out, long before most people ever do, that the real flex isn't the mansion. It's 1,000 front doors with somebody paying rent behind every single one. But running an empire spread across this many cities and this many businesses takes some serious infrastructure. And Floyd's version of infrastructure is, predictably, insane. Chapter 7. The Private Jets and the Billion-Dollar Lifestyle. Now, don't get it twisted. For all the smart, boring, cash-flowing assets, Floyd absolutely still lives like the richest man in any building he walks into. But here's the trick most people miss. Even his most outrageous, over-the-top purchases have a cold business logic hiding underneath them. Take the private jets. Floyd owns 2 of them, anchored by a Gulfstream G650 worth around $50 million. One of the most coveted private jets on the entire planet, the kind billionaires get on waiting lists for. To most folks, that's just the ultimate look-at-me flex. But think about what Floyd is actually doing day-to-day now. He's managing real estate in New York, in Chicago, in New Jersey, in Las Vegas, in Miami, all at the same time. When you're closing a $400 million deal in one city and walking apartment buildings in another, owning your own jet stops being a toy and becomes a genuine tool, the man isn't flying private to show off. He's flying private because his empire has too many zip codes. The jet is how the whole thing stays stitched together. And then there's the legendary collection of stuff. And this is where Floyd genuinely operates on another planet from the rest of humanity. Start with the watches. Industry specialists consider his collection one of the most valuable private watch collections on Earth. Not among the rich guys, on Earth. The crown jewel is a Jacob and Cupern billionaire watch he reportedly paid around $18 million for. One watch. $18 million. Set with over 260 carats of emerald-cut diamonds. That's not something you glance at to check if you're late. That's a bank vault you strap to your wrist. And it's just the headliner. He's also got a rare ruby-encrusted Patek Philippe, a Richard Mille tourbillon limited to 50 pieces in the entire world, a Hublot completely paved in diamonds. The man is casually walking around with millions of dollars stacked up his forearm on a Tuesday. Then we get to the cars, which are flat-out absurd. At one point, Floyd owned 3 Bugatti Veyrons at the same time. 3. Most people will never sit in one. He had a matching set, north of $6 million in just the Bugattis. He's owned a Koenigsegg CCXR Trevita, one of the rarest hypercars ever built, with a body that literally sparkles in the sun because the carbon fiber is woven through with diamond dust, because of course a regular car wasn't going to cut it. Pile on a Pagani Huayra, an Aston Martin 177, a Lamborghini Aventador, a small herd of Ferraris and Porsches, and a whole fleet of custom Rolls-Royces and Bentleys. All in, his jets, watches, and cars together clear well over $100 million in pure liquid luxury. But here's the kicker. For Floyd, even the showing off is a business decision. Every photo of the jet, every flash of the diamond watch, every hypercar reel pumps up the money brand, and that brand is the exact thing that powers his gyms, his merch, and the name recognition that gets him invited into billion-dollar real estate rooms in the first place. With Floyd, there is no line between flexing and working. It's all one giant machine, and the diamonds are part of the marketing budget. And when you finally step back and add the whole picture up, it's honestly staggering. Chapter 8. The kid from the one-bedroom is now a billionaire landlord. So let's lay the entire empire out on the table and really look at it, because the full scope is the kind of thing that doesn't feel real. Floyd Mayweather, by most estimates, is now worth over $1 billion. With a B, and the New York piece is the crown jewel of his entire second act. Think back over everything we just walked through. Roughly 1,000 affordable housing apartments across more than 60 Manhattan buildings. Investment stakes in 9 separate New York skyscrapers. A piece of a multi-billion-dollar office portfolio sprawling across multiple cities. This is not some athlete who bought a couple of condos to feel fancy. This is a man who has stitched himself into the actual fabric of New York City real estate, residential and commercial, sidewalk to skyline. He owns slices of where regular people live and where they go to work in the biggest, most cutthroat real estate market in America. That's not a hobby. That's an institution. And the part that really gets you is the full circle of it all. This is a guy who grew up 7 people deep in a single one-bedroom apartment with absolutely nothing to his name. He clawed his way to the very top of boxing, and then, instead of just enjoying the ride, he made the ice-cold decision to pay his own way out of his contract so he could own his career instead of renting it from somebody else. He turned 3 fights into $750 million. And then, instead of blowing it all the way so many athletes tragically do, he quietly converted that fortune into one of the most serious real estate portfolios any athlete has ever assembled, capped off by becoming the landlord to 1,000 New York homes in the very same region where he once had nothing. That's not just getting rich and flexing about it. That's a kid from the one-bedroom turning himself into the guy who owns the building. Whatever you think of Floyd Mayweather as a person, and people have plenty of opinions, the financial blueprint he drew up is just undeniable. Own your name, capture every single dollar, and turn flashy money into quiet assets that pay you forever. If stories about how the biggest names turn fame into generational empires are what brought you here, subscribe to Black Status, and we'll keep delivering them. See you in the next one.